Imagine waking up one morning to the sound of drums, chants, and the crowd's cry for change. The streets are flooded with voices, banners waving, and the air electric with a single demand. On ne veut plus du pouvoir, on veut le changement. For 50 long years, one man has ruled. 50 years of promises repeated like a broken record. Every election, the same words, the same faces, the same results. But this time feels different. The people are no longer whispering. They're shouting. They're marching. They're refusing to be silenced. And behind the chants, there's a deeper story. A story of deception, manipulation, and an election scandal that could shake the very foundation of the nation. Before we dive in, take a second to subscribe, because what you're about to hear has been hidden for decades. Now it's time to uncover the truth. Applaudissements. The crowd surges forward, their chants echoing through the capital. On te veut plus maintenant? They shout at the presidential palace. It's not anger alone that fills the air, but exhaustion. The exhaustion of a people who have waited too long for peace, for justice, for real democracy. Donnez-nous la paix. A woman cries, tears mixing with sweat on her face. She remembers 1992 when they said change was coming. She remembers every promise since. Empty words that turned to dust. The same faces stayed in power, elections turned into performances, and the people, always hopeful, always betrayed, kept voting, kept believing. But faith has limits, and this year, those limits have been reached. Musique. They say history repeats itself, but sometimes it refuses to. The election this year was supposed to be different. New technology, new observers, a promise of transparency. But when the results were announced, the numbers didn't add up. Reports came in from rural areas, ballots missing, opposition votes burned, and local leaders silenced. Social media exploded with footage of ballot boxes being switched under the cover of night. The government called it fake news. The people called it theft. And as the sun rose, the protests began. Applaudissements. Nous avons choisi la personne qui va conduire désormais notre pays, shouted one of the leaders. Mais ils ne veulent pas qu'il prenne le pouvoir. The crowd roared in agreement. After 43 years under one man's rule, the nation wanted something new. They wanted renewal, fresh ideas, a leader who understood their struggles. Even the elders, who once defended the old regime, began to turn. They thanked the president for what he had done, yes, but they were ready for someone else to try. For the first time in decades, hope was tangible. And that's exactly what made the regime afraid. Musique. Overnight, the streets turned tense. Armored trucks rolled in. Journalists were arrested. Radio stations went silent. Yet the people kept marching. Nous ne sommes pas venus pour massacrer les gens, shouted one young man into the camera, his voice trembling with both fear and courage. Nous sommes venus pour réclamer ce qui nous revient de droit. Who knew the risk? They all did. But this time, they refused to back down. Applaudissements. As protests spread to neighboring cities, the government tried to paint the movement as chaos, as désordre. They spoke of peace, even as they unleashed tear gas. They spoke of democracy, even as they shut down the internet. But videos still leaked. Hidden footage showed election officials rewriting tallies, soldiers guarding ballot boxes long after polls had closed, and men in suits celebrating behind locked doors. It wasn't just a scandal. It was the revelation of a system built to never let go of power. Musique. And yet, something beautiful happened. Despite the fear, the people found unity. Muslims, Christians, students, market women, all walking together, chanting the same words, On veut le changement. The protest became more than political. They became symbolic. A cry for dignity, for justice, for the right to choose. En animal, one protester said, his voice breaking. Mais on ne va pas reculer. Applaudissements. Then came the turning point. An anonymous leak. Files, documents, even recordings, proving that the election was rigged from the top. Ministers' voices captured, discussing how to manipulate regional results. A spreadsheet showing inflated numbers. It was undeniable. The scandal spread like wildfire. International news picked it up. The world was watching now, and as pressure mounted, the government began to crumble. Musique. But change is never simple. Even as evidence piled up, power resisted. Old allies turned on each other. The president disappeared from public view for weeks. Rumors of negotiations, of exile, of deals made in secret filled the air. Meanwhile, the streets stayed alive. Every night the chants continued. On ne veut plus du pouvoir, echoed like a heartbeat through the city. Applaudissements. The story of this election isn't just about corruption or power. It's about the courage of a people who refuse to accept silence, about mothers who face soldiers to demand peace, about young men who live stream the truth, even knowing what it could cost. It's about a nation waking up after decades of sleep. Musique. And as the world watches, the question remains. Will justice finally prevail, or will history repeat itself once more? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The people have found their voice, and it won't be silenced again. If you believe in truth, in justice, in the power of the people, subscribe now, because this story isn't over. The next chapter is being written right now, in the streets, in the hearts of millions who refuse to give up. Stay tuned, stay informed, and remember, silence is complicity. Musique